Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Mitch Simpkins, and this is Wins for Widows, where you get practical guidance from the mouth of professionals who are united in helping you get your feet back on the ground after experiencing the loss of a loved one. Together, we'll uncover the rooted question that you might be asking yourself: what now? And what should I do next? Today, I am excited to have you meet Cari O'Brien, and we've had some fun conversations in preparing for this, Cari. If there's any jokes, it's because she's a stand-up comedian and I'm sit down. We're going to see how that goes. We're going to try to meld that in. But let me tell you a little about Cari. So she's a business and marketing coach, an attorney, and an entrepreneur based in Twin Cities, Minnesota. She tells me there's no snow and it's not freezing yet. She is the founder and CEO of Ripples Reach Coaching. With 18 years of experience, she knows how to empower purpose-driven professionals and organizations with clarity, confidence, and integrity. Many of the things we talk about on this podcast. For you to receive all of those, she does. She's experienced in law, where in 2007 she passed the bar and worked for several years in civil rights, and also ran an estate planning and a family law firm. Speaker, recognized for insights on brand messaging, content strategy, and digital marketing. How did I do, Cari?
You did pretty well there, Mitch. Thank you very much for that intro.
No, I think... Any other accolades we should add there?
Oh, heavens, no.
Proud owner of a really cool cat.
I have two really cool cats.
Okay.
And the goal is to hopefully not have them invade while we talk today.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
That's awesome. Now, you're a cool cat too, though, right?
Well, obviously, hence the cool cat mom. This is how we, that's how we roll here. And here's the stand-up, sit-down comedy we are trying to share with you folks. Here you go.
We'll see how that goes. Oh, thumbs downs already. Wow, we haven't even started. Everyone's giving us thumbs down to Cari. We shouldn't ask for immediate feedback.
Note to self.
Well, Cari, I am excited to have you. We, as we always do, we've talked before and kind of discussed your background and how that relates to the audience that we're working with. And so there's some really cool pieces that I feel like our audience are going to take advantage of and find useful today. So one of the things we talked about, and I think this space is kind of unique, at least from my 20 years of experience as a financial advisor, is professionals that stay engaged and continually involved in their clients' lives. It's really interesting, Cari. I don't know if you've worked with daily money managers at all through your life, but I'm just starting to learn that. And they're a group that's like in their clients' houses. They're like sitting down, gathering paperwork, going to the bank, like really a right-hand person.
Yeah.
Really cool. I've seen a few in my career around CPAs and attorneys, but not always. I think it's probably less prevalent, perhaps, for those who really get in and really understand and stay engaged, mostly because of the transactional nature of their business, perhaps. But we talked about really kind of a one and done and how that happens sometimes and how that doesn't necessarily benefit widows or families who maybe be preparing for loss. Tell me about that. Tell me about your experience. Tell me about your thoughts around how important it is that their professionals get into their lives and they're at least somewhat of a regular occurrence for them.
Yeah, no, I think, so this was a really interesting conversation we had. So in my world, and so in the estate planning world, right? So right now I'm talking with you with my lawyer hat on, right? So yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Yes, I'm a marketing and business coach. Yes, I do all the things because life is too short not to. But right now in my estate planning world as a lawyer, I often hear from clients who come in and think, okay, well, I want to get this done so I don't have to think about it again. Or, I have an estate plan. I did that 20 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. Check the box, we're done.
Check the box, we're done. We hide it in a drawer. We throw it in a safe deposit box. We do whatever we do with it, but one and done.
Yep.
And I always tell everybody I speak to, I said, that is the biggest mistake you can make when it comes to estate planning, is thinking that it is a one and done process. Here's the very shortest brief why. Estate planning is a dynamic thing. It's a living thing. Why? Because life changes. Laws change. Your documents have to change with you. Otherwise, what's the point in having them? Yeah. So I think one of the biggest wins for an estate planning attorney working with their clients is to say, listen, I'm just going to touch base with you every year. I'm just going to have a little touch base, and I'm just going to reach out and say, hey, how's life? What's happened? You know, anything I need to know about, anything big, anything small, you know, let me know.
Excellent.
And, you know, with that check-in, sure, great, your estate planning documents, they still fit what you need. Have a great year. We'll talk again soon. And sometimes some big things will happen. And sometimes it's an inheritance, or, you know, somebody wins the lottery. That's happened in my world. Or, you know, something big comes along to change the nature of someone's estate. Often that's the loss of a partner. And when, you know, partners come together to create an estate plan, they craft that plan to support the both of them while they're there. But often what has to happen at one of their passing is that plan has to adjust. It has to move, because now we're dealing with one person and one estate instead of two people.
Yes. Yes.
And if that meeting doesn't happen, if those documents don't get updated, then life is made very difficult once that other partner passes.
Yeah.
And not obviously, it's very difficult for the people who are left behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So important, Cari. Today, we mentioned I'm doing a webinar today, and that's one of the big pieces is like your life has changed. I know you didn't pick this new life. In a lot of cases, you didn't welcome it. You're not overly happy to have it. But things have changed, and you need to acknowledge that and recognize that. So do your legal documents, right? And maybe with your priors, you had certain agreements, but over time that might change for you as well. Not in deprecation of them, but in honor of you, in honor of them, to say it's time to move on. And I'm ready to do some new stuff. And here's some things I really want to do, right? And sometimes that really involves going back to those legal docs. And oftentimes I think it gets missed because it's not in a system. It's not something that happens all the time. And let's face it, at my house, I still haven't changed my air filter in my heater for like
in your furnace.
For 4 months, okay?
Don't tell your HVAC guy that. Jeez.
And it's because I don't have it as a system. I don't have something reminding me. And, you know, lo and behold, 4 months later, I'm like, wow, I probably should fix that, right? So how do they build that system? How do you build that system with your clients? And how do you recommend, like, either other financial advisors or other attorneys build in their process into their practices, systems that do exactly what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I think the biggest mistake professionals can make is leaving the burden on the client to remember to come back around to it in a year. So if, you know, in my practice, you know, I have it as like an annual checkbox, right? Like I'm going to check in a year. So I have a little tickler system that says, hey, I delivered those documents last year, this time.
And the phone call, Cari, is super casual, right? It's just like,
absolutely.
hey, how you doing? Do you bill them or do you not bill them?
Oh, you don't bill them.
You don't bill them.
You don't bill for a
You're
5-minute
free?
conversation for just to check in and say, hey, how's life? No, you don't bill for that. That's ridiculous. Okay, listen, can we have an aside real fast? We're gonna have an aside real fast about the world of estate. Let's go.
Let's go.
I'm getting fired up now.
Recording, so it's not terribly aside, but others who don't want to hear, put it on mute. Go ahead.
Well, I worry that there are still attorneys out there practicing estate planning on an hourly basis. An estate plan is a package and can be delivered on a package rate. It can be a flat fee service. Now, the 5-10 minute check-in, that's just you being a human checking in with another human to make sure they're okay.
Oh.
Now, am I saying if updates have to be made, those are free? Heck no. No. Because
If you need, Cari.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
But you can handle that in a couple of different ways, right? So if you need updates made, well, depending on the size of the update, you can say, well, we can do this for, super quick, super fast, nothing worry, like no big deal.
Yeah.
If it's well, that was a joint trust with these ideas in mind, and now, well, a lot has changed, and that trust needs to shut down and a new one needs to open.
Yeah.
So it can be small, it can be big, and that's just where the initial call, the initial email, just the check-in saying, hey, what do you need? And then you go from there.
I love that, Cari, because of the world I'm in. Because my clients become my family. Because I see them so often, and I built systems around exactly. And I loved what you said about if you leave that to the client, it's probably not going to happen. If you leave me to change my air filter every month, right, without somebody calling me or something reminding me, it probably goes on. And I see that a lot. I see a lot of old estate plans, like 15-year-old ones, and a lot has changed. So I love that you do that. I love your concept. I love that philosophy. I have seen that, but not terribly often in law practice. It's a rarity, as far as I can tell. It's a rarity.
It is.
And I love that you're doing that. It's the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
For sure. The other thing, Cari, we talked about, and I think is important too, is one of the things I talk about, and I'll talk about today, is where do you go to get your estate work done, and what happens if you've jumped attorneys? You've had maybe one do a little piece of it, another do a little piece of it, and as a result, the person dies, and lo and behold, wow, what a mess. Tell me about that. Tell me your thoughts about who do you go back to. Give me an experience. We talked about an
Ooh,
experience you
we
had. I'm
did.
curious. I
We
want you to
did, you
share that.
know,
I think it's
I
great.
didn't get full permission from my client to talk about this. So I will
Don't
keep
tell
it
her.
I'll keep it incredibly broad.
Mm-hmm.
But this happens a lot. Okay, so my client, her father recently passed away. Her mother passed away a couple of years ago. Father did not make any adjustments to current plan. And by current plan, I mean plan made with wife, but instead decided to make a couple additional changes to the estate, just overarching,
I see.
and didn't work with the same lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Now this gets a little bit more complicated because we also are dealing with two different states. And so in working with a couple of different lawyers, a couple of different financial advisors, what happened is father ended up making this incredibly convoluted estate plan that has been taking months just to cull through which accounts are where. What was set up for which purpose? Was it sent to the children? Was it sent to a trust? Was it sent to no one? Was there any documentation supporting any kind of transfers of estates and real estate? And it was I'm not it's one of the biggest messes I have ever seen. And one of the financial planners whom I have been collaborating with a lot has said this is going to be the case that he talks about to all of his planning clients about this is what we will never do. Because if it's not simple enough for you to be able to understand what you're doing, it shouldn't happen.
Okay.
It shouldn't happen.
Wow.
And so who do you go back to? How do you handle it? Listen, lawyers retire, lawyers change practice. You know, some come and go. You just never know what's going to happen. But what I can tell you is you work with someone you trust and you ensure you keep your paper trail in place. So if you create, will A with attorney over here, and then you create, say a transfer on death deed or a quick claim deed with attorney over here, and you create if you create these with different attorneys in different areas, you make sure you have them all together so that when you talk to the next attorney, they know everything you've done so far and can help you clean it up.
Great. Great advice. I love that because they're definitely, it's okay to change. Things change.
Yeah.
People change. Situations change. I always tell people if your attorney is still around practicing, and yeah, some have retired, and they're available, go back for continuity and for fees because the fees will be less because they don't have to start from scratch and sometimes a new person will, right? So you're paying for all of that prior work done. So if you can, but I love your comment about going back and around financial planners. Wow, I could talk a year about that because I've been in the middle of those. And I guess I would say around that from a financial planner's perspective for those who are listening is if you are going to change your financial planner, that's great. But like you said, first of all, leave on good terms.
Yes.
So that the financial planner is incentivized and motivated to give you all the prior history, information about accounts, what's going. The worst part, and I'll speak about this personally, worst part is if a client just leaves in anger over something that you didn't have a chance to really talk about. And then 6 months later gives you a phone call and says, "Hey, buddy, why don't you spend 10 hours redoing this?" It's not received as well as if it's in an amicable departure and there's that history passed forward, if you will. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Cari, because I think that is so important because, again, I know life changes. Any other comments on that piece? Any other thoughts that you have around that?
My only request, and this is for your audience and for other professionals listening, right? So both for our folks in transition and for the people serving them. Collaborate. So, as an estate planning lawyer, I am trained in law. I am not trained in finance. And in fact, I went into law because I didn't want to deal with numbers. True story. Okay. Not that I'm bad at math. I just don't want to play in tax. Okay. However, your investments, your bank accounts, all of those numbers matter. Taxes are incredibly wrapped up into any kind of estate planning work you do. So if you're an estate planning attorney, you should make it easy to be able to collaborate and communicate with your clients, financial advisors, wealth advisors, accountants, bookkeepers, like whoever they have in their community supporting them. Like, you want to be working in support of that community. And so, if an estate planning attorney gives you financial advice, run for the hills. That's not their job, unless they've been trained in it, unless they've been certified in it, unless that's not their job. Their job is law. And so when it
And
comes
if
to
your
having
financial
conversations,
advisor gives you legal advice,
run for the hills. That's right. Don't, we can't step out of our lanes.
no,
That's ethically
no.
and legally right. Like, we
Yeah,
can't do that.
yeah,
But that's why having that team approach is so important. And for folks in transition, it's okay to ask for that team approach. You should have that and be able to rely on that.
Have you seen some systems work or some ways work or some things that you've seen done either with other professionals you worked with or things that you do to help bring that team together?
Honestly, I don't see it happen as often as I'd like to have that team work. So in my world, if I can build strong relationships, just friendly relationships with the financial planners or wealth advisors who are on the other side, and I say, hey, I'm looking for this information. If I can very clearly say, this is the type of information I need, do you have that on hand or do you have to create it, just so I can see if I'm making work for them or not? It can be very helpful, right? Because on their side, they want to know, well, what's the plan that's being set up? How, my job is going to be helping ensure we fund that properly.
For sure.
And beneficiary designations matter. Okay, well, do you know that not every attorney knows how to draft a beneficiary designation well? And or some banks or other financial institutions don't like certain ways of drafting beneficiary designations. You don't know that unless you talk to the financial advisor who has to put it all into place. So I can't stress it enough. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah, and one of the things I do is towards the end of the year, and I imagine a lot of financial advisors do this. The end of the year for tax time is a logical time. After October 15th, let the CPA get through, and maybe October 30th, because then they have to have a vacation to overcome the stress of the prior several months. But sometime in late October, early November, I reach out and say to the client, hey, I want to take a peek. Let me connect with your CPA. Are you cool with that? We got a couple months. If anything's needed, we can make some changes. That's an easy connection. And for me, transitions, as you mentioned, to me are a very logical place as an advisor to say to the client, probably let's look at your trust.
Yes.
Let's go. Who did you have it done? What do you need to do? And I love that you say, like, let's just make it casual. I have a few very close friends that are my professionals that I work with here, but throughout the country, making just a quick phone call. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Here's the deal. Can really bring that together. So I really enjoy talking about that. What practical steps do you advise for surviving spouses to take immediately after losing a partner to ensure those assets are safe, they've protected themselves legally, and to avoid the dreaded P word?
Probate. Yeah. Well,
It's
so
like this fear, it's like this ominous fear out there, which frankly I don't think it deserves all the
it doesn't.
credit
It
it's
doesn't.
gotten, but how do they...
So, talking briefly about, my gosh, avoiding the dreaded probate. So, the thing about probate is it just locks everything up. You can't do much until probate clears, and probate takes months, sometimes a year and a half. Like, it can take a while, and it costs a lot of money. So if you can plan ahead to avoid it, well, why not do that so that your loved ones aren't dealing with the time, the money, the effort, all that hassle on the other side?
Which
So
requires
that's
what, Carrie? How do they plan ahead to avoid it? What do they need to do?
estate planning. Estate planning is where that comes in, and a lot of trust-based estate planning is how you can do some work to avoid. But it's not just a trust. Beneficiary designations help you keep assets out. Deed work can help you keep real estate out. There are ways to keep items out of probate upon your passing, but you need to talk to an estate planning attorney and your financial advisor to figure out how you're doing that and if you're doing it right.
What's the biggest error you see that brings them to probate?
Not implementing their plan. So the biggest error is working with an estate planning attorney who will give you your documents and say, okay, bye. Like, thank you for being here. Thank you for, like, happy to serve you. Call me if you need me. Now go do all this work. Because there are steps to take once you have your estate plan in place. Most estate planning attorneys I know have a checklist. Like, here are the things you need to do. Please go do them. But if you forget to do them, if you don't update your beneficiary designations, if you don't add a payable on death designation on your bank accounts, if you don't add a lot of these things, then your plan was created to do not as much as you hoped it would.
Yep.
So,
and if you don't fund it, which means titling your assets in the name of
Titling
that,
assets
you
into the
wasted your
trust.
time and money because that kicks to probate. Real quick question around real estate.
Yeah.
you don't have to answer this, but I'm curious, and it might be different per state. Real estate not put in a trust, where does that fall in the old probate world? Like a
So
house.
yeah,
Like a house. Does that trigger
yep.
probate?
So again, that depends on the state. I can't
Okay.
answer
So
for any
that's
other
state
state.
specific. Okay.
Yep, there's
That's what I thought.
only state I can speak to is Minnesota, where
Okay.
I live
What
and
does
practice.
Minnesota say?
So real estate, if not handled in any way to avoid it, triggers probate. Even
Really?
if that's the only thing you've got, it'll trigger probate.
Regardless of the value of it.
Yep. Yep.
It could be a $10,000 shack.
Sure.
It kicks probate.
Yeah.
It kicks, okay. That's
Real
in
estate,
Minnesota.
because that's in Minnesota.
Okay. Okay.
And there are ways to avoid that. There are, and we have what's called a transfer on death deed, and that's one very simple way to avoid that, which is exactly what it says. It's a deed that transfers the property upon the owner's death to
So is that
whomever they
kind of the
want.
same as taking like an IRA and just to tie in a beneficiary to it? Do you do
Pretty
that
much.
with your house? And then
Pretty much.
by that process, it becomes a legal way to transfer it
Yep.
out with avoiding probate. Okay, interesting. So when does somebody need a trust and when do they not?
That is a conversation that is dependent on an individual basis. Like
I'm asking you, Cari,
But
'cause
I will-
get asked that all the time.
I'm sure you do, and
And you're going to solve this today.
as a lawyer, I couch everything in it depends.
I
And
know.
what's fun is, as a marketer, that's also what you say. It depends. So I've been very good over the past two decades
Yeah,
answering with
you got both
it
sides.
depends.
You got both sides.
But I will say what can trigger the need for a trust. If you have minor beneficiaries,
Okay.
minors can't inherit things.
Okay.
If you have an estate that's going to trigger estate taxes at the state or federal level that you want to protect, then trust work helps you protect
Okay.
from estate taxes. So it's a trust can be used for a tax planning purpose.
Okay.
If you have very specific wishes regarding how your stuff moves upon your passing, a trust is what allows you to basically kind of govern from the grave, if you will.
Spendthrift clauses, legacy
All of the
requests,
things, yeah, like and
things
it,
that feel important. Okay.
and they're also used in situations where there are some very complicated family dynamics. So if it's I don't want my daughter to inherit anything because of XYZ, well, we have to be very clear about what that is and why that is. And sure, you could do that in a will. But if you want it to be incredibly defined as to what and why and how and when, the trust is a better document to do that.
More binding than a will?
Well, wills can be contested in the probate process because a
Okay.
will gets probated, a trust doesn't.
Okay. Interesting, Cari. Okay.
Generally.
Interesting.
Again,
That's a
it
general.
depends.
I know.
It depends.
Very interesting, though.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I know as an advisor for me, when I have an account that's named in a trust, and the person dies, it is what it is. And even though they may come to me and say, well, I want this a little bit different. Sorry. That's the way it is. And I follow it. And it's super helpful. And I love that you say the trust is a great way to control your legacy, manage not control it, but to enable your legacy of things that you felt were important. If that's family togetherness, if it's charities, if it's whatever, you can designate that beyond the grave.
Yep, absolutely. So, there are many reasons that would put someone to use a trust instead of a will-based system. Obviously, the cost is higher. There's a lot more work that goes into building a trust and setting it up how you want to. But again, the cost up front versus the cost of probate, the money's going to be spent. So why not spend it in the way you want it?
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. And one of the things I see too, kind of to that point of after death, if it took a year and a half for someone that had no availability to money after the death, there could be a lot of really angry morticians.
Yes, they're good.
Right?
True story.
They're
True
like,
story.
hey,
So,
you owe me 20 grand.
Yeah.
Where is it? Well, it happens to be caught up in probate.
yeah.
That's not going to, and how
That's
long?
not gonna
A year
work.
and a half?
That's
So
not- yeah.
so the other thing
Yeah.
is to make sure that you have availability to some money.
Some money. Yes, so
That
important.
whoever's taking your estate after you're gone, have something available
Yeah.
so that you can get to it. If it's nothing else for morticians and the burial expenses.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I do want to get back to your primary question though, because we went
Please.
down the probate rabbit hole.
Yep.
So the
I
practical
did take you there,
steps.
didn't
Well, I went there. So
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So we're
All
good.
right.
We went there together. We went down
We
the rabbit
did.
hole together. We're going to
Thank
find
you.
our way back.
That's right.
So practical steps for, surviving spouses after loss.
Yeah.
First things first, take a moment to breathe and grieve. Nothing moves fast, and nothing has to move fast during this process. Some folks can get very wrapped up into the idea of a checklist of things to do to keep them busy, so they don't process as much of the loss. And each person grieves differently. But I do try to encourage, just take a moment to breathe. We'll get you where you need to go. Yes, there are some things we can do, but it's okay if we take it step by step. From there, practical steps. So certified copies of the death certificate, I recommend a lot of them. 8 to 10, because a lot of folks, and by folks I mean businesses, want actual copies. They don't want a photocopy of a certified copy. They want a certified copy.
Especially if your estate's pretty complex.
Yes, yes. Making sure that you have gathered all of the key documents relating to your lost loved one. So, this is where, do you have an estate plan? Like, let's pull that out. Insurance, life insurance, and other insurance, retirement accounts, like just pulling together all of the documents related to all of the accounts. That's where, if you already have a financial advisor, they can help you do that really quickly. If you have a lawyer, they've got that document already. And if not, you can give them, right? I would say, early on, you want to notify Social Security, and you want to secure access to accounts that you can. So, again, depending on the accounts and depending if, like, were you named as a joint account holder on the bank accounts? Were you named as a payable on death? Like, what does all of that look like? Sometimes you can have immediate access if you're a joint account holder. And sometimes you have to wait for that death certificate, that certified death certificate, to get access to, like, a payable on death. And if you have to make big decisions, don't do them alone, and don't do them when you're in the depths of grief. So work with an estate planning or probate attorney, right? So not all estate planning attorneys handle probate. Not all probate attorneys handle estate, but most do overlapping, right? But, work with an attorney. Call your financial advisor. Make sure you're talking to your CPA. There are steps that are going to have to continue on, but none of them happen fast.
Great advice, Cari. Great advice. You're amazing. You pulled this right off the top of your noggin. You've got that all in there. I can tell that you've done this a lot, and it's been a pleasure to have you today. I know the information that you've shared today will be relevant, so
Well,
I'm
thank you.
excited
It
to
has
get this
been
out.
It has been a pleasure, and this has been a blast. So thank you for having me. And yeah, if there was one golden nugget in here that someone takes away, then it'll have been more than worth our time.
I think there's a few.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.
Take care.